coming up on A Wild Approach. Hello everyone, Macy Lou here. Welcome back to A Wild Approach. And today I'm just walking around the front garden and I'm looking at some of the plants. I'm looking at some new growth. I'm looking at blooms. And here we go. We've got Golden Alexander, Zizia aria, right near the patio. Zizia aria is a host plant for black swallowtail butterflies, and it is native to my area. So I'm just looking around the garden. There's actually a lot to look at in early spring. Finally, when I first started gardening, there wasn't really anything to look at. It was so barren in the early spring back in the day. And now I finally have things like Redbuds, American Plums, Golden Alexander, Columbine, and Carolina Jessamine. Oh, and I have coral honeysuckle. A lot of that stuff blooms early like this, and it's really nice because, like I said, I used to just mostly have summer blooms and not really any spring, or at least no early spring blooms. And look at this. A Golden Alexander flower about to pop out. This will be the first time I've ever had Golden Alexander bloom in my garden. So I am so stoked. I had these plants last year. I grew them from seed. I got the seed from Roundstone Native Seed in Kentucky. And they, as things do, they just started out as just foliage the first year. And now the second year, I'm already going to get blooms. I'm so stoked about that. And I hope that the black swallowtails find these and lay their eggs, because that's my dream. And then this is not native. This is cilantro. I always have a lot of cilantro because I let it seed itself. And funny thing, I don't eat it. I have that soap gene where to me it tastes like soap. So I'm going to be giving people some of these plants, just because I don't need them. I do love the flowers though, and the little tiny pollinators love the flowers. And right here you can see the rosette of a couple different native plants. One of them is on the left, I think that's bergamot, and on the right, I think that's purple coneflower. This is kind of a new area that I revamped. And continuing on down the path, I guess I should say up the path, technically. This is going uphill. I'm headed toward the gate, and to the right of the gate is a vine called Carolina Jessamine, and it's got these beautiful yellow blooms on it. Hey guys, could you do me a quick favor, pretty please? Could you leave a like underneath this video if you're enjoying it? That way I know which of these videos resonate the most with you guys. Do you need a short, quick guide to get started in wildlife gardening? Well, turns out I've got just the thing. I just came out with a new free ebook just for you, and it's called A Wild Approach to Gardening 101. And it's available on my website today at macylou.com/shop. It's free, so go check it out. What do you have to lose? Where I live, Carolina Jessamine is semi-evergreen. And I don't know the technical meaning of semi-evergreen for sure, but I will tell you what I mean by semi-evergreen in my garden is that this plant in particular is typically evergreen, but if we have late frosts, it can die back to the ground, which obviously means if it's dying all the way back to the ground, then it's losing those leaves. But, it's kind of hit and miss. Some years it dies back to the ground, and some years it doesn't. Like this year it didn't, so that was great. And this year we got our first really big crop of blooms. I've never had so many blooms on this vine so far. And I think I planted it in 2020, but don't quote me on that. I think I planted it either in 2020 or 2021, and it's finally blooming really, really well. It's bloomed before, but only sparsely. Over here in the distance, you can see some pinky purple blooms. Those are eastern redbuds. And with that eastern redbud is American plums, which are the white blooms. And then I have another eastern redbud on the left of the screen right now. I just love Redbuds and American Plums. They're just so beautiful, and I love them together. And I have squeezed them very close together over here. This is my little thicket woodland area. This is where I try to create a hedge, a habitat hedge. And so that's why they're so close together. So it's an experiment. I really like thickets. I like shrubs. I like hedges. And so I'm just trying to create this habitat for things to feel protected. And if you don't know, American plum has these huge thorn-like stems is what I would describe them as. They're very sharp, but they're bigger than your typical thorn. They're more like a really sharp stem. And so they're really good for nesting sites for birds. And later on in the video, you're going to see a cute little bird that showed up while I was recording this video. It is a very chilly day today as I'm recording this. And my hands got pretty cold holding the camera. But it's funny because just the other day it was like 75 degrees. So it's really doing that roller coaster ride of temperatures right about now. And I'm pretty used to that in the spring. You just never know what you're going to get. Some days feel more like summer and some days feel more like winter still. It's kind of all over the place, but I really love how the coral honeysuckle and the Carolina jessamine intertwine right alongside my blue gate. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and it is what I have been striving for. I really like the secret garden type feel. I really like you to feel like you can go to a sanctuary in your garden and you can feel enclosed and you can feel just hidden away, almost like an oasis. You know, I like to go traveling sometimes when I have the ability, but if I had to choose between traveling and making my own little oasis at home, I would pick make my own little oasis at home, because then all I have to do to go to that oasis is just step outside my door and boom, I'm in my garden full of beautiful trees and shrubs and wildlife. And to me, you know, if I had to pick one or the other, that's what I pick. I'm fortunate that I get to travel once in a while, but I will say I don't travel as often as I used to, because I do prefer to put money into the garden rather than money into traveling, even though I really do like to travel a lot. And I just thought I would show you a lot of the plants that are showing up in the garden right now and coming up, you know, whether it's the leaves or the blooms. And of course, this is not the entire garden. I had to cut the video kind of short, but I wanted to show you some highlights. There's so much to see in the garden these days. You know, over the years, I've added more and more native plants, and while my entire garden is not native, it's gotten to the point where the vast majority of the garden is native. The vast majority of the square footage of the plantings are native. And so over the years, I've added so many things that, you know, it's really hard to fit everything into one video. In fact, I don't think I could fit everything in one video unless it was like a 3-hour long video. A lot of times when people come over and I give them a garden tour, I look at the time at the end of it and I'm like, I've been talking your head off for like 2.5 hours. I'm so sorry. And see, that's me, you know, trying to probably hurry because they probably have somewhere to be, and so it's even longer if I don't have to rush and I'm creating a video by myself. So you can imagine, so I have to split these things up, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for a part 2, a part 3, maybe even a part 4. I don't know how many it's going to take, but really I may not even call it part 1, whatever, part 2, because as the time goes on, there are going to be new things to look at, and by the time I get all these videos, who knows what season it's going to be, right? So I'm really just going to have to show you what is popping off when it's popping off, and hopefully that will make sense. And this is the little birdie that showed up and hung out with me in the American plum. You know, I have 7 American plums on this property, and this one is in habitat hedge, and there are at least 2 or 3 American plums in this hedge. and I planted them all very close together, and that was by design so that they could overlap each other and create a thicket type scenario. And it seems like this bird really, really loves it, and so do his friends. His friends were yelling at me, and so was he at one point. So it was really cute just kind of hanging out there. I mean, it was only feet away from me, and it let me like zoom in on it and record it. And I swear, whatever this type of bird is, which I haven't actually fully identified it yet for some reason, this type of bird is just not scared of me. It's so friendly, and they usually, I think these ones are the ones that usually sing at me a lot too. So, I look forward to seeing them in the springtime. I have elderberry here too, but I really did plant too many things right here. I'm going to just admit it. I don't want to call it a mistake because it's working out fine and it looks really nice, but I'll tell you what happened. So when I planted the American plums here, I have the Easter redbud, the 3 American plums, and an elderberry, and also an Easter red cedar. And the Easter red cedar, first of all, they get way too tall, like if you don't do anything to them, so I'm going to be trimming it back or letting it die as it gets shaded out. One or the other, or maybe a combo of the two. It's mostly just a temporary screen or a short screen for me. Just some evergreen interest so that it's not just a gaping hole in the winter. And as for the plums, I planted 3, I think, right here, and an elderberry right next to them. And I soon realized, like a month after, that like, oh my gosh, this plum and this elderberry are too close together. I need to dig up this plum and move it. I already have 2 other plums here. That was my thought, and I tried to dig it out, and I couldn't. So, lesson learned there. Make sure you want a shrub where you put it, because it can be really hard to dig a shrub up, depending on what kind of shrub it is. And I just had no idea that such a short, young shrub was going to be so hard to dig out. So I actually couldn't do it, and I just had to leave it. So that part, you could say, was a mistake, and that I shouldn't have done that. And I did try to undo it, but I couldn't, so I just kind of let it go. And so now I have like a ton of shrubs right on top of each other and a tree next to them. So it is what it is, but I actually really like it. And what's funny about it is, even though they are so close together and they overlap so much, this is one of my favorite areas of the garden because it feels so like private. It feels so much more enclosed. It feels like a little miniature woodland mixed with like a thicket situation, and I just love it. It's really pretty much what I wanted, And so it's working out, but I will probably have to trim things, over time. I will probably have to make decisions and decide what's going to stay here and what's not. What do I trim back and what do I just let go? And the great thing is I have friends who can do cuttings. I'm not really good with cuttings yet. I did just recently get a couple of cuttings to root, which is great, but for the most part, I struggle with getting cuttings to root for some reason. I've even used rooting hormone, and I don't know what I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I'm gonna keep trying. I've said that for a few years now. Like, that's how long it's taking me to like figure this out. But the good news is I have friends who are good at it. So what I could do is I could just cut some of these branches, give them the stems, and let them root them and let them grow them in their gardens. So, I mean, there are strategies to let these plants continue to propagate and thrive and live on somewhere else, even if you don't know how to do it, or even if you can't do it in your yard, or if you don't have room for it. So, and to note, I have like 7 American plums, so it's not like I need any more, but I mean, I don't really know if you can have too many. They're just so gorgeous. And here's the patio, and I've talked about it before, but the retaining wall right there that I've repaired in the past with concrete, with the cement mix, I plan to do an art piece on that wall to make it actually look good, because obviously it's ugly. So that's my plan. And right here I wanted to talk about cardinal flower and great blue lobelia. So I planted some cardinal flower in the front yard and it died because I planted it in the wrong place. I planted it like in the sun and in the driest spot I probably could have. That was a huge mistake. And so this time I planted these from seed in pots, grew them on, and then when they got big enough, I popped them in the ground right here. And I chose this spot because this spot is right next to a downspout. Literally, you could see the splash pad right there, and the water, when it rains, it floods this area. So I find that they seem to be doing really well here, but I will keep you posted because you never know. There's a great blue lobelia right there, but there's some little asters growing in it that I had to remove because I didn't want them to stifle the lobelias. So anyway, here's some Spicebush. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you don't miss an episode, okay? Because I'm going to have a bunch of episodes coming up. Please leave a comment down below and let me know what plant in this video is your favorite one. Hey guys, don't forget to follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram. These are the two best social media accounts other than YouTube where you can find me and you can see me post photos of the garden, thoughts on wildlife, and more. So don't forget to follow me over there. Brand new items are now available in the shop. Thanks so much to viewers like you for supporting the channel. To support the channel, like the video, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my work by buying art from me at macylou.com. Thanks for watching!